Praise the Lord and welcome to Sunday Morning Christian Education. My name is Teraie Deloach. I attend Greater Bethlehem Temple Apostolic Church located on 4781 Hamilton Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Bishop James Chapman is the pastor and our First Lady is Lady Robin Chapman. And where we all proclaim that there is a God in Bethlehem and Jesus is his name. Today's lesson is titled Ruth Marries Boaz. And the lesson text comes from the book of Ruth, chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. The golden text reads, "If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee." And that's Ruth 4 and 4. Today's lesson is a continuance from last week's lesson. In last week's lesson, it was titled Ruth Meets Boaz. And we talked about how Boaz allowed Ruth to glean in his field. Boaz allowed Ruth to get water whenever she wanted. She was able to glean where the reapers had not even been. And Boaz even told them to drop extra grain down for her to pick up. She was able to have lunch with the reapers and with Boaz. Sounds like to me there was a lot of favor going on. Okay, so we left off with Ruth telling Naomi about her time at Boaz's field and all the events that took place. After Ruth came home from collecting grain in Boaz's field, Naomi realized that Boaz was a relative of hers. He was perhaps a cousin or a nephew of her deceased husband, Elimelech. When Naomi realized that Ruth had met a close relative, which was Boaz, and that he had shown kindness to her, she came up with a plan. She basically wanted Ruth to propose to Boaz. Ruth knew that Naomi would not ask for her to do anything inappropriate. So she obeyed what Naomi had told her to do. Ruth asked Boaz to marry her and purchase their family property since he was a close relative. Boaz was a man of virtue, and he was happy to do that. But he told Ruth that there was another relative who was more closely related. However, that man had a greater legal right to marry her. This is called a levirate marriage. In Deuteronomy 25, 5 and 10, it says that if a man died without any children, the man's brother was to marry the widow. The first son from that marriage would be considered the son of the dead husband, so his name would be carried on. God made this law to honor those who died by carrying on the family name. It also provided care for widows who would otherwise be in a dire situation. In those days, women could not work and had to depend entirely on the man, their lives for financial support. Widows with no children and no family to rely on were in a very desperate state. Our lesson says that Boaz met with the closer relative at the city gate to reveal what had happened with Ruth and Naomi. He also had 10 witnesses. The city gate was the cultural and economic center of the town where business was conducted or occurred. Everyone had to go through it to conduct their daily legal businesses. Naomi and Ruth's situation partly involved real estate too. The person marrying Ruth, which was the close relative or Boaz, needed to buy her deceased father-in-law's property, which was Elimelech. But at first, the closer relative agreed to buy the property associated with Elimelech, but Boaz told him the deal included marrying Ruth as well. So he backed out. I wonder why he didn't want to marry Ruth. Perhaps he thought he'd get less money since he already had to take care of Naomi as well for that land. I guess he just didn't want to share and he was going to get less money. But perhaps it just wasn't in God's plan. Boaz didn't seem to care that their first child would not carry on his name, or that he wouldn't inherit the redeemed land in Ruth's deceased husband's name, which was Mahlon. He acted out of compassion for Ruth and Naomi. So after the relative backed out of the deal, he gave Boaz his shoe as a sign of agreement. It showed that the closer relative was giving up his rights to buy the property and marrying Ruth. In today's world, we would just simply probably sign papers or shake hands to seal the deal. So Boaz announced to the 10 witnesses and whoever else was there that the relative had given up his rights to buy the property and marry Ruth. So Boaz bought the property and soon after married Ruth. Boaz agreed to do whatever he needed to do in order to marry Ruth and help her and Naomi. Boaz and Ruth had a son named Obed. As a member of the tribe of Judah, Boaz was potentially in the ancestral line of the Messiah and any children that they had. Obed became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of King David. I hope I have put something on your mind. Until next time, God bless.